Hello, welcome back to Food for Therapy. Welcome back. I'm your host, Therese Bolden. Welcome to the show that combines my training and specialties of psychotherapy, counseling, writing, and personal development with my love of food and hosting and culture. And today is a Christmas episode because we are ending the year and we are starting a new year with some hope for the world. This is the topic for today, and I have some wonderful guests. The wonderful Euahna Varigos, who is an anesthetist specialist and adjunct practitioner, and our integrative medicine specialist, Dr. Alice Murkies. Thank you so much for both of you joining me. So the food that I've served today is my beautiful chicken, butter and thyme chicken with loads of garlic. It's my mum's Egyptian potato salad, and it has also loads of garlic in it. So if you plan on kissing anybody, this is probably not the meal you want to have. I've got some tabouli and some smoked ham, and all the recipes will be on our social media. And so I wanted to start by asking you both, in the world that we're living in at the moment, with all the discord and the polarizing values and beliefs, is it possible for us to not just accept differences, but to celebrate them? And can you give me an example of a friendship that you've had where someone has a very different value to you and how you celebrate that? Euahna, we'll start with you.
Yes, I had dinner recently with a friend that I went to school with, so a long time friend, and we definitely had different opinions about the Yes campaign. And it was how I would say that we each said what we felt, but we valued our friendship. We value our friendship more, and our friendship is a long one. And so I think you can have differing opinions. And I suppose I was careful not to delve deeply into where we didn't agree, but understand that our points of view were different. And that's just an example. But I think I would say that, I come across that quite a bit, even in my work, consulting.
Right.
I have patients who come to me for a long time, and I consider them acquaintances and friends, and I know that we have different opinions about things.
Right.
But so I think it just is the way you handle it. But I do believe you can have friends with different opinions.
So you're saying that we just need to be cautious about the way
we
broach subjects?
No, I think you just have to understand that people can see things differently.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that you don't value that person. Because that's the essence of a friendship. Friendship is valuing the person, not their opinions.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alice?
No, I was saying this before that with the Rorschach paintings.
And for those that don't understand what Rorschach is, can you please explain?
Yeah, it's an inked painting on a piece of paper where one person will see a woman with a hat and another person will see a different image.
Right.
But there's only one piece of paper there.
Right.
But different people have a different perspective, and I like that as an example of differences. I often, use with people, or say a friend, that look, we really just want the best for ourselves and our families, just like you do in life, but we see it differently because of our backgrounds, our upbringing, our experiences, and. But that's actually okay.
Right.
It's okay. In fact, I think it's healthy.
And how do you navigate through, having, and I'm not sure if you do, but I know I do have friends that have, polar opposite views to me. How do you navigate through that if you have a discussion that can be a little bit prickly? How would you, by saying what you just said?
I use that expression of the Rorschach painting with a very close friend. And I just said, look, I hear what you're saying, and that's your opinion. My opinion, I see it differently.
Right.
And then And that's okay, and we change the topic, and which is
That's
we've got
right.
more
Yes.
commonality.
Yes,
It's
yes.
the commonality
Yes.
that's the strength in a relationship, I think.
Yes. But I often feel like, even when you do have different views, and we just had a conversation that could have been quite prickly, it's a really important tool to be able to say to someone what I'm hearing you say and paraphrase back to them, just to ensure that you are hearing what they're putting forward. And it's a technique that I learned when I was doing my training in psychotherapy, so that people actually do feel heard, even though you might digress and you might have a differing opinion or belief or value, they still feel heard the same way.
Could you say that again?
What I'm hearing you say.
What I'm hearing you say.
Yes, so that you're paraphrasing back to them. Because oftentimes when you're in a discussion with somebody who does have a very different value or belief system, a lot is unheard or goes through, the filters and the misinterpretation, and projection is perception. So you have to paraphrase it. I am hearing you say A, B, C, and D, and I respect what you're saying. I have a different view, and I feel like that's a good technique that certainly worked for me. And I don't generally shy away from difficult conversations, purely because I feel like we need to exist in a world and accept difference. It's not about me trying to convince you
of another opinion.
Exactly, which is what's happening with all.
I like that.
Yeah, it's you really need to give people the space to feel safe and express themselves, like you said, but also respect yourself and present your views, because that's important too.
I mean, I'm no expert. You sound amazing, because there are times I've just said, look, I disagree with you, and got up and walked off. I mean,
which is good. No, look,
because I haven't had the words, or
which
or
can
the
be
patience,
easy.
or,
It can be easy. It can be easy to do that, because we have a tendency to, and this goes back to people misconstruing what assertion is as opposed to aggression. Assertion is, you're not calling someone a name, you're not putting someone down, you're not being, harmful to them, but you're stating your position, and you're doing it very clearly without mincing your words. And aggression is something very different.
Yeah.
And so I come from the place of assertion. I am different to you. I do have different views. I do have different values, but that doesn't mean we can't like each other. We can't coexist.
I like that.
That's really my philosophy on people and on life. And I have, I was saying to you, Anna, I have Muslim friends, I have Christian friends, I have Jewish friends. I have a beautiful, beautiful palette of people that I'm lucky to call friends. And I value that difference. And that was something I raised my children with, is that, we have to always surround ourselves with people that are different to us, and people that are more intelligent than us, so we can learn from them. This is what we have to do, instead of, you have to believe what I believe. I don't want to be around you because we don't have the same belief. And I feel like this is what's happening at the moment. We're watching it.
You don't learn.
You don't learn. You don't learn. You don't grow. And I'm somebody that constantly wants to grow and learn something different, even if it is not what I agree with. I want to know.
I like your word saying it's healthy to have that diversity, isn't it?
You have
the diversity
to.
of
You
thought.
have to.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of what's going on.
Otherwise, if you live in a tunnel,
you live in a tunnel.
We're very aware of that, because we are exposed to the tunnel of medicine.
Good point, Euahna.
We meet tunnel people all the time.
How have you both dealt with that? Because that's a great example, Euahna. How have you both dealt with being in that tunnel of medicine and having this very kind of all-encompassing view on what a human being is? How do you cope with that? How do you reconcile that? How do you do that?
I think I've had to. How have I dealt with that in the specialty realm of things, which has been incredibly difficult. I've had support. Like Alice, you have supported me.
Yeah, I was thinking.
had a
Well, yes, we've had each other.
We have had each
But
other.
there were times you mentioned to me before that you felt like you were alone. So take me through that.
I still feel alone.
Yeah.
I still feel alone within my anaesthetic world.
Right.
I feel alone within the pain world. I feel alone within my... And I feel when I go to my meetings that I'm looked at as if I'm a Martian. And, you know, it is...
You told me they called you fairy floss or something. Yeah.
No, I was called that at school. That was at school. That's interesting.
Crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, so basically it has been a very hard road. And I've come from I don't like conflicts. We met in our first week in medicine. And I could see that we were very different, Alice. You and I were sort of looking at everyone else and very different. And I think it's been very hard. I don't know about for you, Alice, but it's been very hard for me within the specialty area to be different. And still is, and I'm still not valued for what I know. And I do know that, despite explaining, giving examples of what I see with the work I do. It's as if I am on another planet. So it's given me, how have I dealt with it? I've not got harder, despite all that. I've not got harder. And I think if I was harder, I might have progressed a bit more maybe, but I've not got harder. And I just have faith that eventually this will happen. What I do will be mainstream.
And it is happening now. It's slow.
Slow, very slow.
It's slow.
I mean, I said 15 years ago that I thought this would be mainstream. You know, working with surgeons, which is what I do a lot of, you know. And I remember talking to a surgeon I worked with. He thought it would be next year. Or you'll be here, you'll be doing this you'll be treating people like this with all our patients. And that's 15 years ago. So it takes a long time. So to your question, how have I coped? My children have said to me, why are you going to that meeting, Mum? Because you always come back so distraught. Every time I'd go to an anaesthetic meeting or a medical meeting or a pain meeting, I would come back distraught of how I was treated. And they used to say, why are you doing that? Don't go. But, you know, with medicine, we have to go to get our CPD. So I had to go. So I had to persevere going. But they helped me realise that it was not me. They said, it's not you, Mum, it's them.
It's hard though.
It's the process,
it's hard though, isn't it?
But it is hard. Yeah, it's hard. Then I have a son who has a lot of wisdom. He said, don't go to the surgeons that don't understand what you're doing. Go to the people that understand it. Only work with them. And he sort of, you know, it took me a few years to realise that he was absolutely right. Because I could, instead of me persevering, showing, oh, look how, you know, the patients would be better and everything. If the surgeon, if a doctor or someone doesn't want to see it, they will not see it. And even if they can see it, and it's a bit different, they haven't got the actual confidence to be different
or
to
consciousness.
Well, it's confidence to be different to their colleagues.
Remember I told you?
That's a good point.
Yeah, I was rushed to hospital because I was having the AFib from the menopause, and I was speaking about you to my doctor, and he said she's a doctor and she does adjunct, and I said, yeah, and
that's right.
But I looked at him quizzically. I looked at him like, come on. And he might have just been out of medical school. I don't know. He looked quite young. But the fact that I'm only scientific and this is the only way that I'm going to go, for me was like, you're missing out. You're the one that's missing out because you don't realise the world of what she's embracing and the people that she's helping. That's how I looked at him.
And it is I know what you mean by consciousness, but it's the confidence because I know the surgeon that did say to me, I want you treating every patient I operate on, he had to have a lot of confidence because all his group all looked at him as if he'd gone mad.
Right.
Not just me.
Right. So you have to risk being really
different.
different.
So
yes.
he risked being different.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of experience. He retired not long after. And he just wanted, and interestingly, he risked being different because he wanted the best for his patients. He wasn't happy with what the conventional route of surgery was giving. So he really he did a lot of different things.
But he obviously had the consciousness to be able to embrace.
He meditated every day before surgery.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. Tell me, what about you, Alice? Tell me.
Well, I think I've had quite an easy road, really. I went into general practice, and soon I was working as a GP, and I heard the voices of women going through menopause.
Right.
And I thought, there was, at this stage, really very little knowledge, very little options for them. So that became my passion.
Right.
And part of that was looking at lifestyle, diet and exercise, and I was involved in research, and I wrote a cookbook with Rita Ehrlich, the food writer, and Colour Me Healthy, and looking at the table with the red, the greens, and again the diversity of colours
in your food, yes. The nutrients content, exactly.
And to help me on that journey, I started meditating myself because there was, clinical work, research work, writing papers, and that was my space early in the morning. I absolutely loved, and then I was lucky enough to tutor medical students in that field. So I think I've had a blessed journey.
Sounds
in
like
my differences. I honestly, I was able to be me in my practice.
Wow.
And then I've been able to have this shift into integrative medicine, but it is combining the diet, the lifestyle,
it's everything.
The mind,
the spirit,
and the spirit
that is so neglected. And often when I say the word spirit to people, they look at me like Euahna said, like you're a Fruit Loop, like you've lost the plot. But I see it as I'm a spiritual being. I'm a spirit having a human experience.
Yeah,
that's how I see it.
Yeah, wow.
That's how I see it. I'm having a human experience, and through that human experience then enables me to learn. I'm here to learn, right? And so, but from a very young age, I know I was very, very intuitive at a very young age, but then it all stopped for me because of the domestic violence that I grew up in. You something shuts down because you're always in survival mode. And it wasn't until I started my journey with psychoanalysis, my own, that it started surfacing again. And then I started to cultivate that through meditation, But I've always felt this, and I think you have said something similar, Euahna, is that I'm different. And I'm okay with that not everybody's going to like you. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I'm good with that. I don't need to be everybody's cup of tea. I just need to be me.
Yeah. Well, and we were reflecting just recently, how we met in the first week of med school, and we've kept our friendship up, and it is a support. Euahna's always got something new. The experts in light therapy. I'm always so excited to speak with her and hear about what you've been doing.
Oh, she spoke the same about you. It's definitely reciprocated.
So, because the world is an exciting place.
It is.
There's more than this
if you're
one
open,
image.
If you're open to it, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
You've got to be open to it. A few weeks ago was my cousin's wedding, and I love my cousin and I love my uncle. But my dad is very religious, and it's almost like he wanted to give me a message that I need to go back to church because that's going to help my salvation, because I don't go to church and I'm not someone that subscribes to any religion. It's more about just acknowledging that there is a higher power, and I call it source, and that's how I live my life. And he was so focused on, I want you to go back to church. I need you to go back to church. You're going to go to hell if you don't go back to church. And I just said, look, it's good to see you. Let's just enjoy the wedding, you know. And even in that, I wasn't adversarial in any way. It was just like, I'm not there. I'm just a very different person, you know.
Yeah. You don't have to go to church to be.
But he doesn't understand that. To a fundamentalist, he doesn't understand that. I mean, he's a Christian.
You wear a cross.
I wear a cross, exactly. It's always going to be in me, right? Because this is how I was raised. So Christianity will always be a part of me. But I believe there are many paths to the same destination, and that destination is source and a higher power. Whatever you choose to believe, whatever you choose to worship, that's your decision. And that's the other thing. We have to respect each other's belief systems and differences, you know?
But you can have a number of different ones yourself.
Correct.
I think I've got a lot of different belief systems.
Yes.
You know?
With respect to religion and the higher God or whatever.
Source or power, higher
Source,
power.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's possibly why I so easily look at other things that like photon biomodulation, like laser acupuncture. How did I get into that as an anesthetist? I mean, my patients do ask me, how did you make that change? Because I just felt there was something else. We were talking about when we were doing medicine, how we always were a little bit more out there, you and I. So we always, but to finish medicine, to actually pass, you said you lost a lot of your intuition, but we had to go into tunnels. If you didn't go in the tunnel, you failed. So you had to get into a tunnel to pass medicine. You'd agree with that?
That's a good description.
That's how people just drifted away.
Right.
You know? 220 started with us in first year. In second year, pracs, there were only tables for 170 something. And that included people who failed and people coming from science. So only out of 220, only 150 got to second year. So what happened to those others? They just couldn't cope with this, the constraints of what medicine was telling you. So that's the tunnel you were talking about. And I sort of was always a bit outside the tunnel, but was in there to pass. And then when I did anesthetics, it took me even further into the tunnel. And that's why I'm saying I think it has been harder for me.
Yeah, I agree.
In the specialty area.
I agree.
Because the tunnel, that tunnel, you know, it was a tunnel that we did to do medicine, and then to do the specialty, you're in these little tunnels. So you are it's so rigid.
I was going to say, but you must, at your core, there is a strength in you to be able to get through that. You know what I mean? And look around and everyone's looking at you like you're an alien.
Well, actually, I got ill. You see, that's one of the reasons why I moved out of anesthetics, because I was not 100%. I struggled to stay in the tunnel. I had 3 children. You know, once I had my children, every time I had a child, I felt it harder to give anesthetics. That was an interesting thing.
You have said that to me before.
I couldn't give an anesthetic to a child after I had Zampi. No,
is that right?
I know, because I was asked to go back to the kids, and I just went, oh my God, I can't do this. No. So obviously there was something, what I was saying, I had to go into the tunnel, but having a child, I got this arm out again. You know, this is me really. This is the tunnel.
Yeah.
And so it was like I was 2 different people.
Did you feel that?
Yeah. I had clothes for anesthesia, and I had my clothes. I was a different colourful person outside anesthetics.
So
I had black and white for. It was quite
you could
specific.
compartment. I do remember a time in my own life where I had to compartmentalize the mother, and then the I was working at very senior levels in management, and it literally was a compartment that I had to do. But also for me, that was a really challenging time as well. I was going through a divorce, and and trying to make sure that I was focused on my children, and making sure, because I had them in therapy after we broke up, to make sure that they were okay. But there was this compartmentalizing which is a survival thing.
Yes,
isn't
yes.
it? It's a survival thing.
I could not have given anaesthetics if I hadn't sort of thought, now I'm giving an anaesthetic. It was like a different mindset. And then, but it was illness that meant that I decided in the end that I would not continue. And then I looked at something else. But then, you know, to move into medical acupuncture was a big change. But I knew you'd done some acupuncture.
Yes.
As in first or second year residence.
So is it the same laser? You do the same?
No, before laser it was just acupuncture with needles.
But is it the same kind of meridian system?
Yes,
it was the same.
And so I don't know why, but I just did a course.
And it was a weekend or a day?
It was maybe a bit longer. We went once a week afterwards, and then we went into clinics to see it being practiced. But I loved the different modality. I loved the difference.
Yes, same. I'm exactly the same. I always love difference.
Being able to offer patients, well, okay, that hasn't worked. Look, I practiced acupuncture. Would you like to try that?
Yes.
And so I loved combining the difference.
It is another modality, which is what the multimodal concept of our health, which we keep on getting told in medicine and in my meetings and all the conferences I go to. It's multimodal, and it's just multi-pharmaceutical, in my opinion. There's very little. They're talking about exercise now a little bit and diet a little bit, which we used to talk about when we were students and as residents. We used to have to think about that. But the other thing that's happened to medicine, in my opinion, is that because there's been an onslaught of the drugs, that doctors now are the gatekeepers to the drugs. We've had to forget about the other concept of what we were taught as residents and students. Remember, we used to have rest. Do you remember? We used to talk about that, but the doctors now cannot do that because they've got this huge array of drugs that are patients want to, unfortunately. And so they're the gatekeeper. That's what's happened. The little thing at the end that we used to do, which was the treatment, prescription, was right at the end. Now it's the most important thing for doctors. So, but the other thing I was going to mention, I actually am treating, and I have a.
How do you feel they take you on now? How receptive are they to your difference now?
Who?
The medical profession.
Well, I was saying they still see me as being out there.
But still, with the same resistance. The
resistance is very strong. I had the, I won't say, but a past very influential anaesthetist who came to watch my work because we get peer review as points. And no one, despite me explaining that I can see things changing and getting back to the subtleties of the body, that's what the other thing I know, that acupuncture taught me to look at the body differently and see subtle changes, nothing that a normal examination would show you.
Right. Give me an example of that.
The sore points that you feel when you treat.
Okay.
But patients sometimes would actually say, oh, I've got a sore part of my ankle, but I've told the GP, they don't know, there's nothing wrong. And yet that's an active acupuncture point. You hear that. So, and the tongue, looking at the tongue, all those sorts of things are just different ways of examining a patient, which is probably how Hippocrates used to look at people, right?
Yeah,
and the ancient, the Ayurvedic medicine, TCM, it was all looking at the patient. But as I said, now gatekeepers of the drugs can't do that.
Right.
But we were taught looking at but you hardly do that now as a doctor. Even blood pressures, we mentioned that. Do GPs often take blood pressures now?
Yeah, we were discussing that before you came. I was talking about how, my own doctor, who I do have a lot of respect for him because he's Arabic in our culture.
Yes.
You can be Arab,
yes.
You can be Egyptian Arabic, you can be Lebanese, you can be Iraqi, you can be, Moroccan, Greek. But it's all about, it's all about that being involved in that community. But he does tend sometimes to not whenever I put forward that it might be this or it might be that, it's my body. I know my own body. Oh no, I'm the doctor. I'm a doctor.
No, I used to practice. Well, I do practice differently, like with
Which I laugh at
mothers
now.
and mother bringing a child. I always said the mother knows best.
I know.
Listen to the mother.
I know.
And when I had med students sitting in with me, listen to the mother. There's the story.
Yeah.
And it's our job to tease it out. And
Yeah.
it can be difficult.
God bless you. But you would be an anomaly, as Euahna would be, because there's not many people that say that. Do you know what I mean?
It's all in the history.
There's not many people that say that. I remember when, it was many years ago, I remember having this shortness of breath, like real shortness of breath. And again, a male, and this is not against men, I'm just saying this doctor happened to be a male. And I was constantly saying to him, I'm out of breath. So is it when you're exercising? And I said, do you think I'd be complaining about it if it was when I'm exercising? I'm just constantly out of breath. And no, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Lo and behold, I get this infection in my thumb. It was green. And I had to go and see a dermatologist. God bless this man. He walked past me around the back and he said, you've got a few lumps on your tattoo. Have you been feeling short of breath recently? And I said, yes. And he said, I think you need to go and have a lung x-ray. Well, it turned out I had sarcoidosis.
Oh, my goodness.
I had sarcoidosis and he wouldn't listen to what I was telling him. And I never went back to him after that. But the moral of the story is that
Listen.
Listen
Listen
to your body, but listen to your body, your own body. You know, yes, with all due respect, you amazing doctors have trained for many years to be doctors, but I'm in this body. I know what's going on in there.
And I don't feel right.
Yes.
You didn't feel right.
Yes, I didn't, you know. So as soon as it was diagnosed, then I actually started going back to meditation again.
Yeah.
Because I realized that
Yeah.
preceding that time was so much stress, you know. My daughter had colic, she had reflux. I had an episiotomy from back to front. I had a 2-year-old and their father was playing sports and away all the time. And I was postpartum.
Oh my goodness.
And on my own. And every single thing. And mastitis. Yeah. And mastitis and on my own. I don't know how I got through it.
No, I don't either.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I used to cry every day.
Oh my goodness.
Every single day I would cry because there was no one in Sydney. Sydney's a very hard culture to get into. But I knew it wasn't right. And I felt sad because I couldn't bond with her in the way I'd bonded with my son because she was so colicky and refluxy and she wouldn't settle unless she laid on my heart like that. You know, so it was a really difficult time, you know. But it happens to mothers a lot.
It does. It's a hard time.
A lot. And to tell a mother this is not happening when she's telling you it is happening, because the same doctor said to me there's nothing wrong with her, with my daughter. So I actually said to him that day, well, you take her home. You take her home and put her to sleep then.
And you tell me.
So I elevated her bed that night. I put, what do they call it, yellow pages underneath the mattress. I put her on her stomach. He gave me my Lanta and she slept through the whole night. It was the first time I got 6 hours sleep, although I didn't sleep much because I was concerned that I wasn't hearing from her. Right? So, I mean, all of it, it's our body and we know.
Yes, and the other thing with what you're saying, I think, unfortunately, for all the lectures you have, all the exams you go through, the one thing that makes it, that is sometimes missing is common sense.
Well, it's not so common.
No, but common sense in about what you're saying. The doctor having some common sense about the approach, listening, what you're saying.
Right.
And I think it's not common. We say that common sense is not common, and it's hard to teach. In fact, I was told once you can't teach judgment and common sense.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it is important in medicine to have good
Well, it's
judgment.
important in any faculty.
Well, we're talking about
As a human being.
Yeah, it is important.
It is important.
You know? I mean, I just feel, going back to the point of difference, this is the thing. Anytime that, this is what I'm saying, these two particular doctors who happen to be men, but it sounds like they had this construct right?
Tunnel.
And they're in that. And anything that deviates outside of that, no.
Well, that's right. And I was about to say that CPD, which I think is important, because you asked me, are you still having this problem? Well, the, very influential anesthetist came to do the peer review.
Yes.
I haven't told you this, have
No.
I? No, the CPD. And I had been telling him I can see results when I treat people with a certain condition immediately. In half an hour, there's changes in the colour, swelling, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And I've been saying that for about 10, 15 years. And I was working 2 blocks away from this hospital. No one ever came to have a look, despite me saying this routinely happens. So I decided, because you said, what have I been doing to help all this? I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask him to come and be my peer review.
Yeah.
Which forces him to come and watch.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it was an epiphany, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was.
Come and
I
see
suddenly
it.
went,
Yes.
I know what I'm going to do. It's like I woke up in the morning and
Yeah.
said, I'm going to ask him to come. So he said yes, he came. And, of course, because he comes from, very, very bright, topped anaesthetic, gold medals and all that sort of stuff. And anyway, he watched me at work. And I run, that I run 3 rooms, I have patients getting treatment, I check this one, then I go to the other one. And so I'm moving around a fair bit.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, he found that totally unbelievable, because when we give anaesthetics, we are there one-to-one,
Yeah.
one-to-one.
Yeah.
Very different concept, right? So he sees me running around, remembering this and that and who the patients. So that was the first thing. He said, it's amazing how you have amazing memory. And anyway, the whole afternoon went. I didn't have unfortunately, I tried hard to get an acute first visit patient, but I didn't. But I had a lot of patients who said, the first time I came, swelling went down, all happened, I'm so much better now, So he had enough exposure to, and not, and I don't know that I can say this, but I chose quite a few male patients that I've treated, because in my
Why did you do that?
In my experience, because my colleagues say, oh, well, of course she believed in it.
Right.
She believes in it, So I had a lot of cynical. I had a couple of cynics who said, look, I never thought. I had a woman who was a scientist. Oh, yeah, I chose very well for this afternoon. I thought, I'm going to do this. And in the end, he said, look, it was amazing, impressive, Euahna. I got a little email saying that, how impressed he was, how my patients were so, appreciative of how I would help them. And he actually said, much to think about, right?
Oh.
And I thought, I've done it. Sorry, I'm being very discreet.
What have you done?
I've got in. I've
opened
got
the door.
That's right, because the door was closed.
You've opened the door for
being accepted,
for being unique, for being yourself,
for what I do to be seen, and a bit of research, however they want to do it.
Right.
And I thought, yes, this is the beginning. I'm going to get into that, because you need a department. You need a huge department to do research. What I'm doing. You can't do it on your own, although they've said go and do some research to me. Great. In my private practice, you can't do that. And so I need a department. And I thought, well, look, it's a jar. It's a jar. So I wrote a letter. No, I wrote an email.
Right.
Straight away, telling him where I saw the future of this. Down the track, I agree. Right down. Nothing.
How long ago was this?
August.
All right, so it's still early days. So maybe you're not going to give up.
No, I'm not going to give up. No, I'm not.
You're not going to give up. You've come this far.
No. I'm not saying I'm giving up. I'm just saying it was disappointing, because it was the first time I'd had anyone apart from my patients who have been anaesthetists. Actually,
Right.
I've had neurologists and anaesthetists and physicians who have been my patients, but it was the first time that I had someone actually viewing what I did, and it was probably confronting to him because he had no idea
Yes.
how I was
Yes.
getting these results.
Definitely.
But it was, and yes, I will be persevering it in the new year.
Absolutely.
But I will also, and to his credit, I said there may have been someone coming to give. Remember, you came to James Carroll's seminar.
Yes.
He was going to come in November, and all of a sudden I saw it was an option. And
Yes.
I said someone from the department would like to come, and unfortunately they didn't come in the end. But that was the beginning. So I'll be
It is the beginning. You have to.
revisiting him again about that. But that's taken a long time.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Everything happens in its time when it's supposed to happen. And
Except that I'm getting much older.
You're not going anywhere.
I'm getting.
You're not going anywhere. You've got there's lots more work for you to do.
I know, but
No.
as my patients say, who are you teaching?
Yeah.
You will get
in
it done.
fact, Sue from our mutual friend, an endocrinologist.
Oh, yes.
She actually
Yes.
said to me, Euahna, about 5 years ago, who
Right.
are you teaching? Who are you teaching? I said, well, not from lack of wanting to teach.
Yeah.
I can't teach an imaginary person.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot that has to be done.
You'll do
And-
it. I have 100% belief that you'll do it. And you'll do it because the door's ajar.
The door
You
is
didn't
ajar.
expect that he would come. He came. He saw.
Well, no, I did expect he'd come. Do you know why? Because he got his points too.
All right. Okay. So, but just get him back again, or get somebody else back again.
No, I'll do. No,
You'll
I
do
will.
it.
I'll do it again. Next year it'll be peer review again.
Good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was an epiphany, that.
Don't go anywhere. I'm Marie-Therese Bolden. Come back to join us in a moment.